Hello from Porto City. This is Tobolodo, and in that way, we probably arrive in Ireland. We're going to speak to Kathy McMahon and Fintan Dunne. Kathy McMahon is the founder of Irish First Mothers, and Fintan Dunne is the spokesperson of Irish First Mothers. We're going to speak today about a very delicate issue. Very similar issue in Spain is the stolen babies. And I would like to know if they have any support from human rights associations and feminist associations, because it's a very delicate issue. It's an issue where the victims are the mothers, the single mothers, who suffer this roughly from different institutions. Okay, I'm with Kathy McMahon and Fintan Dunne in Dublin. I was looking forward to speaking to them because there's a very delicate issue in Spain, is the stolen babies. And after the scandal of Tuam, I wanted to speak to you, and now finally we met here in Dublin. Kathy, she's the founder of the Irish First Mothers.
That's right, yeah.
And I want to know a wee bit more about this organization.
Okay. Irish First Mothers, we came together 4 years ago, in February 4 years ago, as a peer-to-peer support group of women who are incarcerated and have been coerced into giving their babies for adoption. We found ourselves 4 months later thrown into a whole issue about remains of babies in Hume in Galway, and we're still here today. We've had to become politically active in order to have our voices heard and seeking justice.
Do you have any support from human rights organizations and feminist platforms?
Absolutely none from feminist platforms, and none from political organisations either, actually. When we started out, there were, I suppose the word would be platitudes, am I using that word right? Where people entertained us. But as long as we were prepared to just speak about the emotion of what happened to us, that was fine. But when we actually became more political and started realising the harm that was done to us and the human rights issues involved, people backed off. They didn't want to know anymore.
How is the behavior from the media? Are they reporting okay? Because you're being in several radio talks and TV shows.
Yes, sorry. It's mainly rural radio stations who have actually aired our issues and spoken to the women. Media, as long as we were like props for adopted groups, adopted people's groups, our names were mentioned, our group were mentioned, but very little as a group in our own right. It was like mothers were just there to support the rights of adopted people.
Which period are we talking about? Because in Spain, for example, there's two different periods. The period from the dictatorship and as a kind of ideological punishment against Republican women. But then the boom was between 1976 and the 90s. It was already the democracy period. So here in Ireland, what's the period we're talking about?
Well, there would be similarly two different periods or two different, from 1922 up to the 1960s, and then from the mid to late 60s up to 1998.
Okay. On the 4th of April 2017, you wrote a letter to the Attorney General in Ireland, urging her to investigate this matter as a genocide.
As a genocide under Irish genocide law.
Any development of that?
I think that Fintan.
Yeah, because Fintan's, he's the spokesperson of the Irish First Mothers, and you were appointed to the government for to be in the selection panel, but you have recently resigned. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, well, the government put a selection panel in place so that it could pick a group of affected persons who would then, according to the government, help shape government policy and how the government would respond to adoption issues, mother and baby home issues, etc. That consultative process turned out to be a dictatorial process, and I had to resign from that position at the second meeting because it was a government agenda and we were mere window dressing for a government agenda. This has been the problem with the government responses in Ireland. For example, setting up a commission of investigation. Are there some facts that we're in doubt of that we need to investigate? Does someone doubt the mother and baby homes existed? Of course not, they did. Does someone doubt the incarcerations took place? Of course not, they did. What is it that we have a commission of investigation to investigate when these facts are well known? What's not so known and accepted is that these were genocidal acts, specifically in the case of Ireland, because the women were chosen on a religious basis. They were fallen women and discriminated on religious grounds. And then the second act of genocide was the removal of the children, which in genocide law is recognized as an act of genocide. So it was on that basis that we filed a genocide notice with the Irish Attorney General. It would be up to the Irish Attorney General to go to the Director of Public Prosecutions and admit to these crimes on behalf of the government and allow for the DPP to prosecute. So this could be done in any nation where it was felt that there was a genocidal intent to the selection of a grouping who were discriminated against. They could simply use genocide laws within their own nation without the involvement of any external court. All it takes is a government with the will to face up to the crimes of the past.
Do you think this term genocide is scaring the government to do what they want, they need to do to solve this situation?
I think it scared them, unfortunately, into even more deception and lies and hiding in the hope that this will go away. But the women, as you hear from Kathy, are strong. They are getting stronger, and they're empowered by other women's movements they see around the world where women are saying, no more lip service. Now we want action. Now we want real equality. We want no more pretense. So I think that eventually the government will have to face up to these issues.
You advised the Irish First Mothers not to participate in the commission of the government. So as you call for justice and redress, I think it's a closure what you need. What is your next move?
Well, we have to challenge this process at every level, I think. The Commission of Investigation, we have to ask hard questions about the need for such a commission in the first place, when the evidence of these crimes is everywhere around us. It's established historical fact. It's being taught in schools. So if there's an elaborate pretense here, we need to cut through that pretense. And I think the women, as Kathy will testify, have been damaged by the Commission's investigations. They have been ham-fisted. They've lacked proper psychological support. I think Kathy should address that.
Yeah. You mentioned that Fintan had advised the women not to participate in the commission. Actually, the women have attempted to participate as much as possible. The commission have proven to be quite difficult to get information from. their process isn't clear. Many women who applied to meet with the Commission ended up meeting what they thought was an evidentiary committee, and it was actually a confidential committee where their evidence is more for historical records than it is for evidence. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Um, um, many of the women who applied when the Commission began its work first, 4 years ago, spent 2 years, 3 years, waiting for acknowledgement even of their application. Those who, and there's several members in our group who applied to give public testimony, sworn testimony about their experiences, and we haven't heard anything from the Commission to date, whether they're going to allow us to give public sworn testimony. Other women who applied to give private sworn testimony or who inquired about doing it were actually put off. They were asked how their parents feel. You know, there were scare tactics used to put the women off giving sworn testimony. So we've had huge difficulties in what we hoped would have been our path to justice, and you know there hasn't been forthcoming from the government. So yeah, I'm kind of getting lost. Sorry.
So your next move now, what is going to be? How would you like to achieve what you want to achieve?
I'm not sure exactly how we're going to
move things forward from this point. Well, a lot of it depends on the government's response to the issues that we've raised and to the dissatisfaction of the mothers with the current processes. So we'll just have to see in the months ahead how that plays out. It's a little too early to say, and I think that public attention and focus on these issues will only intensify as we come closer to the date of the official report.
Okay. Well, I wish you all the best. I think this issue is very, very delicate, and it's closure, and it's an answer and a proper responsibility from the governments in Spain and in Ireland. And I hope you find what you're looking for. Okay.
Yeah, well, I hope it's an example to mothers in Spain that this is a problem that we share in two nations, and that we have one enemy, and that's the lies, concealment, and lack of justice. So we should be united in determination to achieve that in both countries.
Yeah, and as a mother, I'd like to say that I think, and my role within Irish First Mothers has been to get women to believe in themselves, and for us to acknowledge within ourselves and to each other that crimes were committed against us. And I'd encourage the mothers in Spain to have confidence in themselves and unite and to keep fighting.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you very much, Fintan.